All right, welcome back into halftime. It is time to get in with our friend Bob Holt, the illustrious sports writer from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Joined us every Thursday. Bob, Hogs looked really good last night. I thought that might have been one of their more complete performances of the season, and really does give me more confidence about the way they're playing right now, because I don't trust what happens against Vanderbilt very much. The Auburn game was an uneven performance. The second half was outstanding, but felt like yesterday against Ole Miss, Muss's team just really did put it together. They can really start getting on a roll now if they continue to play like that.
Yeah, I mean, people might look at Ole Miss's record 8-7, 3-5 now in the SEC and say, well, that's a team you should beat at home, and it is a team Arkansas should beat at home. But Ole Miss came in hot. They'd gone to Mississippi State, who's played pretty well, and won on the road there by 18. They, really took care of A&M pretty easily, beat them by 11 at home. And, they held those teams to 46 and 50 points, so they were really playing good defense coming in. And I thought Arkansas would win, but I thought it'd be, a closer game, 5, 6, 7 points, something like that. And Arkansas got out to a 12-point halftime lead and really stayed in control the whole second half. And yeah, very complete game defensively and offensively. They were able to solve that 1-3-1 zone or whatever, whatever Ole Miss was playing. And Ole Miss was 1 of 16 on threes, and some of that was, bad shooting, but, Arkansas did a good job of, running them off the three-point line, like Eric said. And it was just a real complete performance on both ends of the floor, I thought.
And I know Muss said in postgame he wasn't really happy with 12 turnovers, but Ole Miss forces over 18 a game. I thought they handled that press really, really well. And I mean, most of the talk after the game was about Devo Davis and J.D. Note and how Connor Vanover affected things. But I thought it was one of the best aspects of what's happening now with this team is that Justin Smith is obviously healthy. That ankle isn't giving him a problem. He went up against two of the stronger post players in the SEC in Buffin and White. He handled both of them well. He rebounded well, and I thought that was a big takeaway from last night's game too.
Yeah, that ankle may still be giving him some pain, but like you said, I guess was that his fourth game back? I was track, and he's definitely playing, more like his old self. And obviously you look at his stats and he scores in double digits. He gets a lot of rebounds, but I think he does a lot of things that aren't readily apparent, certainly don't show up in the box score in terms of, defensively making, everything kind of work on that end. And, same thing on offense. He's just a huge presence. It's not like he's averaging 20 points and 15 boards, but he's a really key player for him. And they missed him when he was out. And now, like you said, he's back to form, I think, and that's a really big plus for them.
Bob Holt joining us here on halftime. Bob, when you look at the stat line, I think a lot of what was impressive to me was almost kind of, is it fair to say, the reemergence or just kind of a really good gameplay by Connor Vanover last night? And for several weeks, we thought just his minutes were dwindling, but Bob, last night he played pretty well with the minutes that he had, or the vast majority of the minutes that he had, and really caused havoc for that Ole Miss team last night.
Yeah, that was the best game he's had in quite a while. And, there were games that he just wasn't, frankly, was kind of a defensive liability trying to guard smaller, quicker players. But last night, he had 5 blocks and affected so many other shots, 8 points. But didn't force shots, 7 rebounds, and Eric's, so he pointed out he was really key against the Ole Miss zone because, they could just pass the ball to him over the top, get the ball to him, and he's, very good with the ball in his hands in terms of seeing teammates. He got a couple dunks on some real nice cuts, and guys found him, and, he kind of got back into it at Vanderbilt, so that was a good confidence builder for him, I think. And there's going to be games where he plays more than others, but he was, a huge impact last night. Eric said it really, his impact went beyond the numbers, and the numbers are very good.
Some other impressive things that came across here, and we asked Phil about this just a moment ago before we got you on, or asked his opinion of it. 1 of 16 from the three-point line was Ole Miss. And we've talked about the lack of the three-point defense, or it's been down compared to where it was last year. Are we starting to see this team start to get the concepts and the different things that Eric Musselman wants out of this team on the three-point defense? Or do you think it was a case of just Ole Miss just struggling mightily from the three-point line?
Well, I think Ole Miss, they're not a great perimeter shooting team. Schuler's a really good jump shooter, but he's a guy that's hit some threes for him, and they held him in check pretty well. I think it was probably a combination of Ole Miss didn't shoot well, obviously, but they had some open looks, but I think Arkansas did a better job. If you look back to the Vanderbilt game, Vanderbilt doesn't do a lot of things well. But one thing that they do is shoot the three pretty well. I think they were averaging over 10 threes a game made, and Arkansas held them to 6, I believe. So I do think their defense is coming around. I don't think it's going to be as good as last year's because like a guy like Isaiah Joe is such a good perimeter defender and such good lateral quickness. But I think they fixed some things in practice where, Eric talked about guys being afraid maybe or concerned to get up on guys out there because they're worried about, getting guys driving past them. So I think they probably fixed some things, health-wise to where guys are more confident going out there. But, but in Auburn, they didn't go crazy on threes. They hit 15 threes in the game at Auburn. I think they hit 9 maybe. I have to double-check that. But so I think there is a body of work there that shows a small sample size. For the last 3 games, their three-point defense has gotten better. Of course, not playing Alabama helps that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob, this team's won 3 in a row, and the latter half of the schedule, and throwing out the Oklahoma State game, which is a good chance to get a W in that one, depending on the status of Cade Cunningham. But when you look at the conference slate of the schedule and just keeping this winning streak alive, Bob, the latter half of this SEC schedule sets up really well for Arkansas. You get winnable games at home. You get your tough games at home. Your toughest road trips for the rest of the year is, I would argue, Kentucky and Missouri. So the latter half of the schedule sets up really well for Arkansas, and they're playing extremely well at probably the best point of the season.
Yeah, the schedule is definitely more manageable. Coming up, this Ole Miss game was the first of 3 straight SEC home games. They had a lot on the road, and I know they looked really bad at LSU and Alabama, but those teams are pretty talented, and certainly Alabama's playing real well. And LSU's, sometimes LSU's their own worst enemy. They've got a lot of talent, so having to play those teams back to back and play Missouri early and play Tennessee early. Even playing at Auburn early, even though Cooper wasn't eligible yet. So the first, third or whatever of their SEC schedule is pretty tough, and I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's more manageable, and I think that they're playing better too. And I don't know if they can win at Kentucky, but Kentucky's obviously struggling, and it's going to be very tough to win at Missouri. But you look at the schedule, and they're definitely a lot more wins out there that that are potential wins out there for them. You feel like they could realistically get.
Bob, I was going to ask you, to try to put yourself in a season ticket holder's body for Arkansas football for a moment. But you've been a media member for all these years, so I wonder if you have that sort of empathy for a season ticket holder that would love to have as many home games as possible at Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium and gets 2 SEC home games this next year, albeit Texas is an exciting matchup. I don't like this schedule that came out yesterday for Arkansas as a football program. I think for fans as well. I just wonder your thoughts on it.
You mean as far as like playing Missouri and Little Rock and playing A&M and Arlington?
And these two. See, that's the issue here. And people might be tired of the Little Rock and Arlington conversation. But when every 2 years, this is what you deal with. That's what you deal with. That's part of the conversation, and it's unfortunate that it happens every 2 years.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you'd like to get more games in Fayetteville. I think ideally, but there's just a big emphasis, I think, with the administration to keep a presence in Little Rock, even if it's only one game every 2 years. And, that I think that's just something that the administration is bound and determined to do. They feel like, they want to keep Central Arkansas, games down there. And, Arlington, that's Jerry Jones is a big booster for you. And, of course, I can see where people are saying, well, gosh, Arkansas had to go to A&M. A&M should have to come to Fayetteville. But as Hunter Yurchek said, moving that game to Fayetteville this year extends the contract in Arlington. So if people, maybe are feeling like this Arlington thing hadn't worked out for Arkansas as well as they'd hoped. Certainly A&M's dominated in Arlington and College Station and Fayetteville. They dominated the series of the SEC. Then, you're going to be complaining about that, the games in Arlington being extended. So it's not an ideal situation, but it's always been, the Little Rock Fayetteville thing. And of course, Little Rock used to get more games. It used to be the bigger, nicer stadium, I think, and obviously that's not the case anymore. And I think people are excited about Arlington, the players, where it's an NFL venue. Like I say, it's Jerry Jones venue. It's been financially lucrative for both schools, but that may run its course. So yeah, there's certain years that it's just tough, because this past year, they wouldn't be playing, 2 games away from home. They would have played Missouri and Kansas City. That was tough. Last year they played Missouri in Columbia and they played A&M in College Station. And now, moving forward, those should have been neutral site games. I think Kansas City would have truly been a neutral site. Mm-hmm. And obviously Arlington would be too, so that's tough. I mean, you have to play 2 SEC teams at their place, and then coming back, you don't get either of those teams on your campus. But, that's the way the schedule falls.
Bob, I think you explained it really well there. Appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, you guys take care.
And we'll have Bob with us next Thursday as well. And we always appreciate his time. Hey, if you are dealing with sleep apnea and your wife just hates the noise, you do too for that matter, you don't want to deal with the CPAP. Of course, the noise, the constant cleaning. Dr. Bo Sparkman at Family Dental Care of Fort Smith can help you with your sleep apnea with a custom dental appliance, and you're going to get rid of the CPAP machine. So call 479-785-1419 to learn more. Dr. Sparkman has years of experience and has treated hundreds of patients just like you. That number, again, 479-785-1419. Get rid of your CPAP with Family Dental Care of Fort Smith. All right, after the break, we still don't know what to call the segment. Something involving SmackDown and food, but that just means it's going to be fun, so stay with us.